What is the biggest misconception about workouts during pregnancy?
There's so many. Don't get your heart rate up over a certain, number. Don't let your heart rate over 140 beats per minute. Don't lift anything over 40 pounds. Exercise is going to steal nutrients from the baby.
Dear Lord, that's one?
Oh, that's one. I had a doctor tell me that.
Oh my God.
I've had really bad. You're gonna be like, what are these doctors in New York telling you? I had an appointment once where, I don't know if your wife had this, like you go for maybe an anatomy scan, like that bigger ultrasound where they're like measuring every toe and everything of the baby. And I went for my standard anatomy scan. And she was just kind of chatting with me. So this is like the high risk doctor. I didn't have high risk pregnancies, but it's a high risk doctor doing these scans and checking everything. And she was like, oh, tell me about yourself. Do you exercise? Do you blah, blah, blah? And I was like, oh yeah, I do exercise. And she was like, how much exercise are you doing? I said, oh, I lift weights 4 times a week. I do cardio a few days a week. She says, well, how much weight are you lifting? I'm like,
and what lifts?
For what lift? Literally. Like only someone who asks, someone who asks that question just doesn't work out because you're like, for what? Like a bicep curl or a deadlift? So she was like, I don't know, just any exercise. And I'm like, this already tells me you know nothing about exercise and pregnancy.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, well, a deadlift. And she's like, okay, how much weight do you lift for a deadlift? And I'm like, I just like stuttered at her for a minute because I was like, I know where you're going to go with this, but like, why? This is going to be not fun.
I wish
for
you said like 500 pounds.
So to prove a point, I did say, usually I'm deadlifting these days at, however pregnant I was, maybe 200 pounds. She said, oh, that's way too much. And I said, okay, let me ask you something. If before pregnancy, I was doing 400-pound deadlifts and now I'm working at 50% of my capacity, do you still think that's too much? And she smiled and she knew where I was going. And she was like, I see what you did there. And I'm like, okay, do you understand? Like trying to say there's an arbitrary number that you should not surpass isn't helpful because you don't know what my normal is in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really good at auto-regulation. I'm really good at being able to go into the gym and say, if I feel good, I'm going to push it today. And if I don't feel great or my hips are hurting or whatever's happening during pregnancy, whatever fun new symptom is coming up, I'm going to modify and adjust if I need to. And she said, well, evidence says that you shouldn't lift over 40 pounds. And I'm like, I know the paper you're talking about. It's about manual labor and women in the workforce who were, it's something like, don't quote me on this because I haven't read it in a long time, but it was whatever the research was that she was trying to quote was something about women who were working manual labor who didn't lift more than 40 pounds had no pregnancy complications. And I was like, that doesn't prove anything about me weightlifting in the gym. And I'm so grateful because we're seeing so much more pregnancy data come out now. I just saw something last week or maybe 2 weeks ago come out about a study just further proving that exercise is healthy for mom and baby. And for so long, we didn't have a lot of great data because we're conscious of studying pregnant women for obvious reasons, for ethical reasons, conscious of studying, how a pregnant mother responds to X, Y, or Z, or how a breastfeeding mother responds to X, Y, or Z, or how a newborn responds to X, Y, or Z. But we are really starting to see a lot more of that research come out. And I'm so grateful because my hope is that some of these myths begin to die and that women are not afraid to exercise during pregnancy. And with that, I think there was a very common belief that I think is still a belief, a very commonly held belief, and that is that you can do what you were doing pre-pregnancy. If you weren't exercising before pregnancy, don't start during pregnancy. But if you were doing something, you can continue doing that. That has now been recanted and disproven to say, even if you've never exercised a day in your life, exercise during pregnancy would be beneficial for mom and baby. And I think that's huge. Obviously, gradual, like we want to take a gradual approach, whether you're pregnant or not. If you're brand new to exercise, you're going to need to take a gradual approach. I wouldn't recommend that you hit the ground running with 5 days a week of lifting. Like let's start slow. But I am looking forward to hopefully some of those misconceptions dying with the fact that there's a lot more pregnancy data coming out.